Okay, any audience questions?
You guys can start coming up with these mics if you like as well.
If not, I'm just going to keep going.
I have two questions, one for Pop Box and the other for the NASA lady. The question for Pop Box, what's your business model? How do you guys make money? Because I can see a lot of conflicts of interest in terms of certain companies advertising on certain legislative pages. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't, if advertising is your business model. My question to the NASA lady, with your dynamic mobile searching, using the example you gave, you know, if you're in DuPont Square and you're looking for a parking spot, and you propagate it throughout the mobile network, what do you do if someone lies about a parking spot? Or if multiple people lie? I could see you saying, you know, you can get multiple responses, but many people lie, so that kind of throws a wrench into your system. Those are my questions.
I'll be quick. The model is subscription services for organizations, advertising, polling.
Regarding lying, I guess, well, I think that's a great question. And if you have users manually entering information, then I'm not sure. I think there's going to be many applications where it would be an automated thing. So it might be your car that's actually saying, I just left the parking spot, as opposed to a person.
I was here last month, and I'm working on a financial literacy program. I try your product, I sign up. I just want to know, is it going to be just for employers, or the people I'm helping, and they subscribe, and how much will it cost?
Could you please repeat the question?
Sorry about my name.
So the question was that she signed up for Hello World last month. Wanted to know if just people from employer organizations can sign up, or whether the people she's helping through her financial literacy programs can sign up as well. So traditionally in the past, we've been focused on the employer market, but we're launching next week to the public. But certainly we give away free passes. We have community organizations that we are currently working with, but if you're interested in partnering with us, absolutely get in touch. My email is Geraldine.
I did. I sent an email to one of your VPs and the founder.
Okay. Well, we'll follow up afterwards.
I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
How about over here?
So women are a really big market with different needs than men, and women are more likely to see and desire to meet those needs. What if you aren't? I'm looking at Shop Suey. Were you a tech person and you had an idea and then you carried it out on your own, or you're a woman and you have an idea and then you figure out the tech? How did that work for you? And the other people on the panel, I missed some of that, but if you also founded a tech company.
I am a woman. and I do tech. I've been kind of equal parts geek and design. I went to Carnegie Mellon. I've been doing e-commerce for 15 years. I have coded my own stuff a long time ago and know how to apply all the technologies and stay abreast of everything. And I've worked on some large-scale stuff. I've had my own agency. So yeah, it was born out of my own need, though. It really came from more the design side, the user experience side, and integrating it with the technology, using the tech to solve the user experience need, the problem in my own personal life. I'm a mom. I have 2 little boys. And I had 2 companies, my agency and my startup company at the time. Closed my agency, and I'm focusing on Shop Suey, but at the time, with 2 companies and 2 little boys, when I had no time and I'd have an event to go to, a conference or whatever, I would come down to, do I want to spend my weekend going to Saks to get a personal shopper, or spend weeks online trying to find outfits that probably aren't going to fit, and I don't know, what's going to go with what, and it just is really time consuming. Or do I go to my son's soccer game? So it comes down to time. And for me, it was a time-saving issue for busy women that just needed a better way. And shopping hadn't evolved in this particular way, and I see Shop Suey as a mashup of a lot of existing technologies spun in a new way with unique architecture and algorithm behind it.
So you knew how to build it at the minute you had the idea. Were you all that way, or did? So thank you. So what is, some other experiences. So if you weren't that person who could build it when you dreamed it, what did you do?
So I was a congressional staffer, sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, this makes no sense with the way information is coming in. And at first I thought I'd gone to the only office that didn't have some wonderful tech solution that solved all of this, and then I found out it's actually all of Congress. And so, I mean, it's really just a matter of sitting there and thinking, wow, this is crazy. And for a while, I really tried to find people who would go build it and just fix it. And I mean, I think I met Peter Corbett because I attended some conference where I thought people were working on things like this, and I just wanted to tell them there was a big problem that needed to be solved. And did that for a long time and just kept building up this list of what I really thought needed to be done to fix it so that I could show all these really smart people that I was trying to find who were going to fix it for me. And then I started thinking, okay, it looks like nobody's going to take this up. And so I looked around for the people that I thought potentially could do it. And Josh Tauber, who is our CTO, had built a site called GovTrack. I sent him an email, and he responded in like 2 minutes and said, okay, let's talk. And so I called him, and we talked about it. I ran into our other co-founder, who also happens to be a woman, Rashna Chowdhury, and she was an advocate, and she said, oh honey, you think you've got problems. You ought to be one of the people on the outside trying to get the messages into Congress. So she increased the problem list that we had going, and we just all talked about how we would work on it. And Josh, I mean, it's a really typical 3 co-founder story of one being the tech co-founder, but I think it's also a really big story about solving your own problem. And I think that as technology becomes a little bit more accessible and a little bit less expensive, and normal people can envision themselves coming up with a tech answer to a real problem, because before, you know, it was really intimidating for someone to even think they had the tech answer to a real problem. You waited for somebody in Silicon Valley to solve your problem. And so I think now there's an access, some of the barriers are coming down even in our own minds, that we know how to solve it and to have that confidence. And I think that meetings like this put people who have problems they want to solve in contact with the people who know about the technology to solve it. So kudos.
So thank you all for being here. It's so inspirational to hear you. So I have a quote from an angel investor who recently publicly admitted some of his biases. A pregnant founder CEO is going to fail her company, and I want to hear about some of your experiences going through angel funding.
I'm so happy you read that article.
Marcy,
Sure. Yeah, I think that, and what was the quote again?
a pregnant CEO, founder, woman, is
Yeah.
going to fail her company.
Well, I think that kind of thought or question is not unique to the VC world. I actually have been in situations where, you know, you got the question of, so, what do you plan to do in the next few years? Like, what's your situation? Yeah, and, you know, the undertone is, you got any plan? And I think that exists in the world, and I think that women in every professional capacity are used to getting that kind of inference. I also think that the point made earlier about the audience that exists of, you know, the special needs of, I'm not expressing myself very well, but what you were talking about being a mom and being an entrepreneur and having problems that nobody was solving for you, so you just went out and decided to solve them. That's a huge market, and that's a huge opportunity, and someone who understands that point of view is going to bring a lot to it.
Yeah, and I think people say that across industries, not just tech. It's not just if you're running your own company.
But you're going out for funding, so it's a serious consideration.
Sure. And I mean, I think in a startup environment, you're working really hard, but you also have a lot of flexibility in terms of where you're working. And with modern technology, I mean, you can do your work from a lot of places. And I think just because you're going to be the mother, you're not going to be the sole caretaker. You have shared responsibilities. And I think it's just, that really scares me that people say that. I mean, I don't have any kids myself, but certainly think there's ways to overcome it with startup world, we actually have, I think, a lot of flexibility. And you can probably talk about it too.
Yeah. So I think nobody's really talked about how finding funding it's a partnership. It's a two-way street. It's not just say yes to whatever money comes along. And I think that's part of the equation where, obviously if they're going to be judging you on that criteria, maybe they're not a good fit for you. And you can say no to them. And I've done so. So it is a two-way street. Yes, I've encountered many jaw-dropping comments in my search for funding, but yeah, it just means they're not the right people. And I'm happy to say that we have met some great people that we're moving into due diligence with.
And I would encourage actually everyone to read that article. We can post it in DC Tech boards afterwards, but this particular investor was actually very forthcoming in his question, saying he didn't even think he should ask it, but then he'd already invested and he was a little concerned and decided, okay, I'm just gonna put it out there and then, just open kimono, like, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I think I should share this. And then the female founder actually wrote an entire response that was just fantastic. So I encourage everyone to read it. We'll post it. Yeah.
Hi, this message is really more for Jesse Kate, but I guess anybody could really answer it. I was thinking about your mobile networks and your mobile ad hoc networks, and I was thinking about when applications come along that are looking for information from those networks. There's really a dynamic relationship between the two. We think of the internet as this sort of like, they say the cloud, right? It's just this thing, it's this monolith, and what you're talking about is much more of a dynamic trend. It's almost like a finite element analysis in real time. And I'm an engineer. And I'm imagining for everybody else what that means to me is as there's a demand for something, people are going to tend towards that demand, right? Which is going to increase the size of the network, which is going to change the demand, which is going to change the way that your applications can theoretically start using that information, and there's a give and take back and forth that changes, as you can see. And I'm curious what Jesse's thoughts were on that sort of relationship.
So one of the properties that interests me about these networks is that if you think of, have you ever been to a baseball game in DC and you get near the stadium and you can't use your phone because the networks are just overloaded? But in this case, we're not using the networks with a capital the. We're routing information in between individuals. And so we haven't tested this yet, but the idea is sort of could it scale? Could it or should it scale well? Right? The more people you have participating, the more connectivity you have there. So it's an interesting question, and I think it looks promising that it could actually benefit from that kind of feedback cycle as opposed to the current networks we have.
So we're running tight on time, but we're going to take these two last questions and then do the open mic session.
Sheree Mitchell, gotta be snarky all the time, at Digital Sister, and I'm a founder of an organization called Digital Sisters. And I've always started with women with startups, and I wanted to ask that question about the fashion techie, and I want us to end on a note, and I want each of you to answer in some way. But I always want to ask those same guys when they say that about the women techies who come up with some fashion app. I see a lot of sports app, and I never hear them once say that to any of those guys when they come up there. So I just want to know, when those jaw-dropping moments happen, what do you recommend for other founders, for other women startups, and then if anyone's ever done startups before, and this is like your second or third, I just wanted to know about that too.
Well, now I have to give an example. So I guess probably one of the worst comments I ever got was my very first pitch presentation. And I walked into the room, and as soon as I I walked in, one of the gentlemen in the fund turned to me and said, "Is this bring your daughter to work day? Maybe next month I'll bring in my little girls and they'll share some of their ideas."
Did you turn around and walk out?
No, I mean, all I had to do was just own it. And at the end of my presentation, he turned around and said that was the best presentation I've ever seen. So, you know, I mean, I've put up with that my entire career, honestly. So, it really, you gotta have a thick skin, and you gotta be able to just prove yourself, and prove yourself, and prove yourself, and prove yourself. And the number one rule of being an entrepreneur is just keep moving. And so you just gotta keep moving.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
Nobody else had horrible things?
I have. I mean, but it's, you know, as a startup, I worked at AOL for many years, doing everything from coding to product management, to community management. And, I walked into tech events and, with my male colleagues, and then was asked, oh, who brought their girlfriend? And way worse. So I would say the worst was in a meeting when some guy I knew, it was a very professional meeting, but I was the only female walking. He saw me, and he was excited, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and he picked me up and spun me around. And I will tell you right now that there is nothing more demeaning or degrading as trying to walk into a professional setting, trying to get people to take you seriously, and then being spun around like a rag doll. So, I mean, like Lisa said, it's about having a thick skin. It's about just move on, just prove yourself, and eventually you'll get it. Hopefully. So I think, do we have time for one more? This is our last question.
Hi, Sherry Lushin. Not just because you're women, but in the fast pace today of startups, realistically, I'm assuming all of you have made it through some first round of financing, except for Bad Lab, which is a separate kind of entity in terms of venture capital. What is your realistic goal? Because obviously I'm a little bit older, and this kind of reminds me of the 90s when there was this huge explosion in energy. Realistically, very quickly, each one of you, what are your short-term, long-term goals? Are you in it for a couple years and hope to sell and that? Because that's, everybody asks that, like, what do you project for your lifespan?
That's a big question. I think we're in it for the long run. I don't think anyone at Personal thinks this is something for a couple years and then we want to crash out. I think we want to change the way people manage their data in a meaningful way. And I think that may take longer than a couple years, and we're committed to doing that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's when a question like this is asked, the part of me kind of goes back and forth between wanting to be nice and humble and knowing what the potential is. And I mean, people talk about changing Washington a lot, but we plan to do it.
Yeah, I mean, same goes with Hello Wallet. You don't change money behavior overnight, and so it's really intended to be a long-term planning tool with people's lives for a long time, and so that's really what we're working towards.
My vision for Shop Suey really is pretty huge. It may seem like it was just a fun little changing out some stuff. That's really the first iteration utility. The full scale of this is, I plan on being the Google for consumer search.